All right. So today I will be speaking about the development of the digestive system. Digestive system starts to appear during the 4th week of development as a result of the cephalocaudal and lateral folding of the embryo, transforming the flat embryonic disc into a 3D structure. Folding itself occurs by differential growth of tissues. It means like the ectoderm grows faster than the underlying mesoderm and endoderm, causing the folding of the trilaminar gem disc, and that what gives the human look to the embryo. In this sense, as a result of the embryo folding, the endothelial line tube of the yolk sac is incorporated into the early embryonic cavity, forms two blind ending tube at the cephalic and the caudal portion of the embryo. The cephalic one creates the foregut, and the caudal part from the hindgut. However, the midgut is made by some portion of the yolk sac itself. The rest of the yolk sac and the allantois will stay outside the embryo at this stage of development. The allantois in human is vestigial. However, in some vertebrates, they serve as a reservoir for the urinary system. The primitive gut at this stage of development can be divided into 4 segments. The pharyngeal gut, or the pharynx, extended from the oropharyngeal membrane or buccopharyngeal membrane to the respiratory diverticulum. The foregut extends caudal to the respiratory diverticulum till the area of the liver outgrowth. The midgut extends from the liver outgrowth till the junction between the right 2/3 of the transverse colon and the left 1/3 of the transverse colon. The hindgut extends from the left 1/3 of the transverse colon to the cloacal membrane. The internal organs of the gut tube are suspended by mesenteries from the dorsal and ventral body wall. Thus, the organs that are completely encapsulated by this layer, by these layers, called intraperitoneal organs, whereas the other organs that lie opposite to the posterior body wall and covered only at their interior surface by a layer of the mesenteries or the peritoneum, they can be called as the intraperitoneal or retroperitoneal organs. Peritoneal ligaments, on the other hand, are part of the mesentery that usually extend between 2 organs or between an organ and a body wall. Both mesenteries and the ligaments of the mesenteries serves as a pathway for blood vessels, innervation, and lymphatic vessels passing from the organs to either to the dorsal or the ventral body wall. By 5th week of development, the lower part of the foregut, midgut, and major part of the hindgut are suspended from the abdominal wall by the dorsal mesentery. In the stomach, it's called the dorsal mesogastrium or the greater omentum. And the region of the duodenum is called the mesoduodenum. In the area of the colon, it's called dorsal mesocolon. Whereas in the area of the jejunum and ileum, it forms the mesentery proper. Ventral mesentery, on the other hand, that extend from the which exists only in the region of the terminal part of the esophagus. Ventral mesentery exists only in the region of the terminal part of the esophagus, stomach, and the upper part of the duodenum, is derived from septum transversum. When the liver grows inside the septum transversum, it divides this ventral mesentery into 2 areas. One is called the lesser omentum of the stomach, that extends from the stomach to the liver, And the other one is the falciform ligament, which binds the liver to the ventral abdominal wall. Formation of the esophagus depends on the formation of the tracheoesophageal septum. The septum divides the respiratory diverticulum into a ventral portion to form the respiratory primordium and a dorsal portion, the esophagus. The upper two-thirds of the muscular coat of the esophagus are made of the striated muscles, thus it's innervated by the vagus nerves, while the muscular coat of the lower third of the esophagus is made of the smooth muscle cells, thus it's innervated by the splanchnic plexus. The stomach appears during the 4th week of development as a fusiform dilatation of the foregut. However, with further development, the appearance and position of the stomach change greatly, and this is due to different rate of growth of the stomach itself and changes in position of the surrounding organs. In general, the stomach rotates around its longitudinal axis and around its anterior-posterior axis as well. Firstly, the stomach rotates 90 degrees clockwise, as shown in this picture here, causing the left side to face anteriorly and its right side to face posteriorly. Thus, the left vagus nerve initially innervates the left side of the stomach, now innervate the anterior wall. Similarly, the right vagus nerve innervates the posterior wall. And during this rotation, the original posterior wall of the stomach grows faster than the anterior portion, forming the greater and the lesser curvatures. As a result of the anterior-posterior axis rotation of the stomach, the caudal pyloric part moves to the right and upward, while the cardiac portion of the stomach moves slightly downward and to the left. Rotation about the longitudinal axis pulls also the dorsal mesogastrium to the left side, creating a space behind the stomach called the omental bursa, or the lesser peritoneal sac. This rotation also pulls the ventral mesogastrium to the right side. During 5th week of development, the spleen primordium appears as a mesodermal proliferation between the two leaves of the dorsal mesogastrium. However, with the rotation and lengthening of the dorsal mesogastrium, part of the dorsal mesogastrium and the peritoneum of the body wall fuses and degenerates. Thus, the spleen is then connected to the body wall in the region of the left kidney, as shown here, the region of the left kidney by a lienorenal ligament, and to the stomach by gastrorenal ligament. This also determines the final position of the pancreas. Initially, the pancreas grows into the dorsal mesoduodenum, but with the rotation and lengthening of the dorsal mesogastrium and fusion with the dorsal body wall, the organ changes from an anterior peritoneal place to a retroperitoneal position. And for this reason, pancreas can be called a secondary retroperitoneal organ. As a result of the rotation of the stomach about its anterior-posterior axis, the dorsal mesogastrium bulges down, as shown in this picture. It continues to grow down and form a double-layered sac extending over the transverse colon and small intestinal loops like an apron. This double-leafed apron is the greater omentum. Later, its layer fuse with to form a single sheet hanging from the greater curvature of the stomach. The posterior layer of the greater omentum also fuses with the mesenteries of the transverse colon. ventral mesogastrium forms the lesser omentum and the falciform ligaments, which itself is derived from the mesoderm of the septum transversum. When liver cords grow into the septum, it becomes thin and form the peritoneum of the liver, the falciform ligament, which binds the liver to the ventral body wall, and the lesser omentum, which connects the stomach and upper part of the duodenum to the liver. The free margin of the falciform ligament contains the umbilical vein, which obliterates after birth to form the round ligament of the liver, the ligamentum teres hepatis, while the free margin of the lesser omentum connect the duodenum and the liver, the hepatoduodenal ligaments. It contains the bile duct, portal vein, and the hepatic artery, or what's called the portal triad. This free margin also forms the roof of the epipolic foramen of Winslow, which is the opening connecting the omental porta, the lesser sac, to the rest of the peritoneal cavity, or what's called the greater sac. When the stomach rotates, the duodenum takes a C-shaped loop and rotates to the right side. This rotation, together with the rapid growth of the head of the pancreas, pushes the duodenum from its initial midline position to the left side inside the abdominal cavity. The duodenum and the head of the pancreas press against the dorsal body wall, and the right surface of the dorsal mesoduodenum fuses with the adjacent peritoneum. Both layers disappear, and the duodenum and the head of the pancreas become fixed in a retroperitoneal position apart from a region near the pylorus of the stomach, what's called the duodenal cup. It retains its mesentery and remains intraperitoneal. Liver primordium appears in the middle of the 3rd week of development as an outgrowth from the distal part of the foregut. This outgrowth penetrates the septum transversum, and the connection between the hepatic diverticulum and the duodenum narrows, forming the bile duct. A small ventral outgrowth is formed by the bile duct itself, and this outgrowth gives rise to the gallbladder and the cystic duct. Further development, the epithelial liver cords intermingle with the vitelline and umbilical veins, which forms the hepatic sinusoids. Keep in mind that hemopoietic cells, Kupffer cells, and connective tissue cells are derived from the mesoderm of the septum transversum. Liver participates in hemopoietic function, which produce red and white blood cells, lie between the hepatic cells and the wall of the vessels. This activity gradually subsided during the last 2 months of intrauterine life, and only a small portion of the hemopoietic islands remain at birth. Liver also participates in bile production at 12 weeks of development. At this stage of development, bile duct is formed by the union between the hepatic duct and the cystic duct, and now bile can enter the gastrointestinal tract. Because of positional changes that happen to the duodenum, the entrance of the bile duct gradually shifts from its interior position to the posterior one, and that is why the bile duct is seen to pass behind the duodenum. Pancreas is formed by 2 buds, the dorsal pancreatic bud and the ventral pancreatic bud. The dorsal pancreatic bud situated in the dorsal mesentery, whereas the ventral pancreatic bud is close to the bile duct. when the duodenum rotates to the right and becomes a C-shaped structure, the ventral pancreatic bud moves dorsally, mimicking the shifting of the entrance of the bile duct. Finally, the ventral bud comes to lie immediately below and behind the dorsal bud. Further development: the parenchyma and the duct system of the dorsal and ventral pancreatic bud fuse. The ventral bud forms the uncinate process and inferior part of the head of the pancreas. The remaining part of the gland is derived from the dorsal bud. The main pancreatic duct is formed by the distal part of the dorsal pancreatic duct and the entire ventral pancreatic duct. The proximal part of the dorsal pancreatic duct either is obliterated or persisted as a small channel called the accessory pancreatic duct of Santorini. The main pancreatic duct, together with the bile duct, enters the duodenum at the site of the major papilla. The entrance of the accessory duct, when present, is at the site of the minor papilla. In 10% of the cases, the duct system fails to fuse and the original double system persists. In the third month of development, pancreatic isles of Langerhans develop from the parenchyma of the pancreas. Insulin secretion begins at the 5th month of development. Glucagon and somatostatin secreting cells also develop from the parenchymal cells. Splanking mesoderm surrounding the pancreatic buds forms the pancreatic connective tissue.